Good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to those joining us. Great to see you. Welcome to the Purpose Collective. The sun is shining, at least it is in the UK. So for those of you who've joined before, you know the drill. Use the chat, tell us who you are, tell us where you are in the world. And if this is your first time, welcome. We're going to have lots of fun and lots of interaction in this session. So use the chat, tell us who you are. Tell us where you are in the world. There's always a prize, not a physical prize, but just a metaphorical prize for the person in the most exotic location. And today we also ask you to share a bit about you by asking a question. And today's topic is all about making change happen. And so when you use the chat to tell us who you are and where you are in the world, also, can you tell us, have you made a change this year personally? What change have you made this year, or what change do you want to make? So for me personally, this is a bit of a strange one. One of the changes I've made this year is I've started taking cold showers because I've kept hearing people talk about Wim Hof. I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly, and the benefits of taking cold showers. So one change I've made this year is I started to take cold showers, and you know what? Actually, when you get used to it, it's really good. It's like nature's caffeine. And I've got two young kids, and so I absolutely need that boost in the morning to wake myself up. So let's get in and see. And as we got more people joining, welcome. Use the chat, tell us who you are, tell us where you are in the world, and tell us what change have you made this year, or what change would you like to make. And while we wait for everybody to join, let's dive in and see who we've got. We've got Alistair in South East London, not very exotic. We have Lachlan in Cork, happy Paddy's Day. We've got Camilla in Hamburg. Welcome, Camilla. We've got Simon in Canary Wharf, London. Not exotic, but a strange place, Canary Wharf, I always think. It's a place like no other. First time, Andy suggests you come along. Welcome, Simon. We have Tina, who's just about to start a new job. Congratulations. We've got Scott in Colorado. Welcome, Scott. And I think it must be pretty early in the morning there. You're in the front runner at the moment for the exotic location. Welcome back. Great to see you again. We got Andy in Stafford. Scott is an adjunct professor at the University of Colorado Boulder, Strategic Communications. Oh, wow. We should have a chat. And I think today's topic and today's guest will tell us more about their experience in communications. Alistair James shares he's been taking singing lessons and he started to sing in public. We could put you on the spot, Alistair, but we'll save that for another occasion. We've got Tim in Derbyshire. And he's taken up ultra running, just a nice, easy change to make to life. And apparently your endurance peak years ahead. We've got Paul Rigg in Dublin, not much change made this year, but working on getting 2 good nights sleep back to back. That sounds a good one. We've got Joey in North Carolina. Welcome, Joey. Okay, so if anybody's not introduced themselves in the chat, tell us who you are, tell us where you are in the world, and tell us a change you have made this year. I would also encourage everybody, if you're comfortable, switch on your cameras. We like to see the faces. We make this very interactive. So, we do get people who join us sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning who prefer not to switch on the cameras. And we will be having the chat rooms later as well. Just a couple of other people, Alberto in The Hague, who's our very own Alberto, who said he wanted to eat less chocolate but failed. It's much easier to start something than it is to stop something sometimes, I think, Alberto. We got Simon in the Lake District, changed jobs, moved house last year. And we got James Ball just up the road from me in sunny Birmingham, and is using a default diary, and it's really working. I have no idea what a default diary is, but maybe you could educate us in the chat, James. Okay, so we're ready to go. My name is Chris Blackwell. I am one of the co-founders of the Purpose Collective, and I tend to welcome us into the sessions. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Alberto to say hello.
Hello, I'm Alberto from Spain, but living in the Netherlands. Also a co-founder of the Purpose Collective, together with Chris and Sarah. And I'm also the founder of Just on Purpose, and I help organizations, leaders, and teams to uncover the purpose and do more things based on that or driven by that. And I also teach at the University of Applied Sciences here in The Hague. And with that, I pass on to Sarah.
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Chris. A very warm welcome to you all. We've got a great session lined up. Briefly introduce myself. I'm a business psychologist by background, often on the corporate pitch, coaching teams and individuals. I'm also a dialogue coach, so I help people have tricky conversations, and I'm an author. I've written Powered by Purpose most recently, and before that, How to Have Meaningful Conversations. And my change this year, Chris, no ultra running for me, but I have taken up ballroom dancing lessons. My partner would say I'm learning how to follow and struggling a little bit at the moment.
Excellent. And Sarah, are you going to welcome our guests today?
I certainly am. So Andy and Purposeful, very warm welcome to you both. Andy, you are the first guest speaker that we're having back for the second time. So
thank you.
Andy Green, delighted to have you back. I've got a question that I'm going to ask both of you, but Andy, if I could maybe come to you first. You're the director of Grow Social Capital. You've written 7 books on creativity and won many awards, and share a real passion around purpose. We're going to be hearing much more about that shortly. But maybe, Andy, one question for you. When did you first get interested in purpose, and what kick-started that for you?
Well, I've got to thank you guys, because it's something I've always done. And when I come across the Purpose Collective, it's sort of validated and codified and branded something that I took to automatically, unconsciously doing. So big thanks to you guys.
Yeah, I'm delighted to hear that. And you've gone on to generate an absolute wealth of tools that you share very generously. So we're going to come on to those very shortly. If I could come to Purposeful McKean, or am I getting your name pronounced correctly here? Oh, you're on mute, so please unmute yourself.
I was just being polite and staying quiet. Kyon is the actual Kyon. So yeah, it's an anglicized version of the Irish version of Son of John. So Mac is the Irish word for son, and Kyon is a derivative of the Irish version of John. So it literally translates as Patrick, son of John.
Welcome. So welcome, and how appropriate that here we are on the 17th of March, of course, it's St. Patrick's Day, welcoming you both from Dublin Conversations. And Purposeful, I'm aware that you're a mentor, a governor, a lecturer at Dublin City University. And tell us about you switching on to purpose. What got you interested in the purpose topic?
Well, it's interesting. It's one of those things that you kind of it actually in terms of the specific language and in terms of framing language around it, I probably arrived at a point about 4 or 5 years ago, catalyzed by Andy and conversations that we started to have around what is the future of the industry we worked in public relations, and what is its benefit to society, and how and where does it actually find its value. And in doing that, the words emerged as the answer to the question that I have been asking for probably 20 years, is why do we do this? And it was kind of an evolution of thinking that brought me to the point, well, it's about purpose. And he and I were in a session with some colleagues of mine here in Dublin, and it was just one of those things that kind of said, that's actually the language that framed it. And it was there all the time, but I hadn't articulated it out loud as being around purpose. But that's always what it was. For me, it was always about, why do we do this? And purpose is the answer to the question, why.
Great. Thank you, Purposeful. Thank you, Andy. I'm going to hand over to you guys, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, so welcome here today, and bear with me a moment while we get out some. So we all face the challenge that we live in a world of increasing distrust, tribalism and dislocation, and we believe you need to unlearn to actually think bigger. So how do we do this, and as quickly as possible? But we mentioned St. Patrick's Day. I think it's appropriate. Purposeful, do you want to give us a toast just to celebrate today in proper fashion?
Well, Andy and I always have this conversation about Irish toast and the way people outside Ireland see them. So I think the classic Irish toast is sláinte, which is the Irish translation of the word health, your health. So I would say sláinte, but to that we also add another one on annual occasions like this. So birthdays, the end of the year, the beginning of the year, St. Patrick's, etc. We have an Irish saying called Go Merrimesh Bio ar an am seo arish, which is that we will all be alive at this time when this time comes again. So I would say to you all, Go Merrimesh Bio ar an am seo arish, and cheers to you all.
Thank you, Dan. So quick in the chat, guys, can you put in, have you seen this film recently? Don't Look Up. Great film. I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but it portrays a scene where the world's about to end in 6 months, but does humanity save itself or not? And the challenge of it is that it brought out that our society's got major issues of division, and we need to do something about it. And so through our efforts at the Dublin Conversations, we're hoping to give people better tools, confidence, and a space to address these very big issues. So who are we? Parag, do you want to share a bit more?
This group, I guess it started from conversations that Andy and I were having with one or two small industry colleagues, a small number of industry colleagues. And it's grown over the last almost 4 years now. We started this conversation in May of 2018. And it's a collection of people who come from different backgrounds, aligned but not exclusively in the area of communications or in different aspects of communications. So Matt Atterley works in the whole social capital area with Andy. Tim is a designer. Moira was an ex-colleague of mine here in Dublin, and indeed an ex-student of mine working for one of the large agencies in Dublin. Kristen is very much involved in the whole area of online. Kristen and Andrew are experts in the whole area of the online value in the digital world. Alan has been working in the higher education sector for many years and is now based in the US, working for a US educational organization on the West Coast. And Sarah is an academic in Northumbria. So it's a collection of people who have a kind of what I might call a curious interest, not just in what communications does, not just in why we do it, but also what is its role, not just now, but into the future, and how can that role best be anchored in organizations? Because we all accept that communications is of value, but sometimes much of what society looks at is simply the manifestations of the symbols of communication rather than the fundamental underlying value of it. And we want to actually get back to where does it start and where does its fundamental value arise? So in that context, we're looking at, I guess, we sense that there's a need for a more purposeful society, and that's how, where the value of communications will be manifest. And what we're trying to do is deliver a conversation and create an opportunity for people within our profession and in the area that we've worked at to actually take an active role themselves in articulating what that purpose should be and where communications fits into that, and where we can fuel others and fuel other elements of society through our work being more purposeful. And we're challenging, I suppose, our colleagues and the people that we work at are they going to be bystanders? Are they going to wait for somebody to determine this for them? Or are they going to be active players? And through the Dublin Conversations, we want to create a window into our world where we would be able to give people something that they could, a way of looking at this world that's different to perhaps the standardized or the accepted or the institutionalized shapes that would exist around, say, public relations or media relations, advertising, elements of marketing, all of which tend to be led by the medium or led by some element of the process rather than being led by the fundamental purpose. And we also have recognized in conversations with people, because we started to engage in multiple conversations very quickly, that we need to give something tangible to people that they can actually use to step onto this platform and to test their own thinking, because people don't get confidence unless they put themselves into the position and do some work with it. So we created the toolkit, a significant set of tools which we touch on later on, which are designed to enable people to find their own sense of purpose, and from that be more articulate and, if you like, more confident in articulating the purpose agenda and the purpose conversation with others. So what we're trying to do is bring more people into it to ask questions and trying to create a space where we can have thinking by doing. It's an action process. So that's ultimately how we want to give the idea of purpose an anchor in our world, so that we can not just provide them with tools, but also take on some of what we would describe as the monsters or the presumptions that exist, or indeed some of the manifestations of various industries that serve our area, which have become, I feel like the drivers in themselves, because if people go into the one thinking, they follow those manifestations instead of actually stripping it back and saying, well, what actually is the purpose and why are we here? So we want to kickstart that faster activity so that we can actually get out to reach everybody. Now, it is arguable, Andy, you might touch on this, as to we don't actually need to reach everybody.
So the good news is we don't need to reach everyone. Here's a model that's maybe familiar with a lot of you, the Everett Rogers model of innovation, where you get 2% innovators, early adopters, 13%, and so on. And I was really taken by this when I come across a psychological study that studied aircraft disasters, where the plane fills with smoke, doesn't leave the ground, and people can get off. And psychologists interviewing survivors identified there's 3 types of people on this planet. 15% panic and engage in counterproductive behavior. 15% get off and be interviewed by the psychologist, but 70% just sit there. So in a life and death situation, people choose death rather than taking action. And this has been rationalized as a normalcy bias, so that I can imagine my dear wife and I on a plane, Andy, sit down, don't cause a fuss. And really it highlights the sort of challenge we face is not persuading people to say black is white or white is black, but actually overcoming inertia. So we believe a change model is that you need to really build a community of change makers, only about 15%, who then create a new social norm for the others to follow. You've probably seen the TED Talk film, How to Create a Mass Movement in 3 Minutes. And really that demonstrates this process in action, that you need the few to then inspire the others. And we find this model vindicated by studies in climate change. A really great study here about identifying different responses to the climate agenda. And you can see on the far right spectrum there, you've got the people who are against the antis, and you add that number with the disengaged, you get your 15% there nearly. So you can see this sort of model at work. You've seen it at work in the anti-vaxxers. You know, people say, how do we get everyone to? Whereas the reality is, in any situation, there's always inevitably, inherently, going to be a group who, you know, whatever your efforts, will represent a constituency. But from our viewpoint, at the other end of the spectrum, it's about building that change-making community to create the change we want. But we just need 15% or so of people to create that change.
So we have then, I guess, in terms of our tools, or in terms of the overarching elements of it, our process, there are certain characteristics that we bring forward, I guess. First is the concept of humble intelligence. So we're at a very early stage from the individual conversations we had, and then as we started group conversations, you recognize that every conversation yields some new intelligence. So the concept of humble intelligence drives us, and also the concept that you know, intelligence and indeed process is emergent. It's emerging from those conversations. So we're very conscious of the fact that we don't have and we don't own the right of everything. But what we've tried to do is create a sense of a straw man or a shape or a wireframe of what might be possible and what tools we could use as a way of drawing people into conversation, because fundamentally conversation is what enables people to have confidence, to take things forward, to learn better, and indeed to add to our cumulative knowledge. So we're looking at generating conversations on a platform that enables us to create a series of tools or sets of families of tools.
Yeah. So the challenge we've got is, you can see this is our cover sheet for each of our tools, and we've got a complex situation because we're dealing with complexity. So to manage this, we have on the far left of what we call the Dublin window, our 5 steps for unlearning how you think, and then 6 families of tools. But to address the complexity issue, we're focusing on the world of how do we share our first family of tools of Know Thyself, which is a DIY purpose program that enables people to immediately access, free of charge, how to be more purposeful. As a free gift for today, a St. Patrick's Day gift, we're giving one of our tools away, the Comms Canvas. This is inspired by the work of Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize winning behavioral psychologist, and a simple tool where if you need to engage with anyone, you need to do hit 5 buttons, 5 needs being known, liked, trusted, front of mind, on being talked about. And this gives instant results to any challenge you face. So please, after the comments, have more time to think it through, work on any problem, and address those 5 questions. That's our free gift from today as a media bonus there.
So I guess what we want to do then was to make the idea of purpose fitter for purpose, and to create a series of thought provokers and tools. So we've come at this at 2 levels. We're looking at this from the perspective of generating a number of green papers, which would be like overarching conceptual, challenging some conceptual areas around, for example, what forms thinking. We're exploring, for example, the concept of the liminal space as a place where learning arrives and learning occurs, but also then creating some specific tools. So these are much more, if you like, pragmatic day-to-day tools that we feel that would be useful and of value to people in terms of learning and indeed framing for themselves their own context for purpose and their own experiences.
So we're going to breakout session now, guys. Where, as I say, like in terms of how do you explain what purpose is? Because that's one of the big challenges of engaging with others. We've given you sort of part introduction to our approach here, but we'd like you to explore this question of how do you explain what purpose is? So, Chris, how long have people got here?
So we've got, should we do 12 minutes for this one? I'm just going to move somebody into a room. So 12 minutes, and we'll see everybody back. I'm going to open the rooms now, and we'll see you back in 12 minutes.
Okay, fine then. So Porrick highlighted how we need to make the idea of purpose fitter for purpose. And as I say, please, your contributions in the chat will help inform that dialogue, that conversation going forward. So critically, we believe we need to anchor the idea of purpose to one of the most important human functions there are. So you think as human beings, we need to breathe, eat, use our senses, but what's the other critical dimension? And it's actually our consciousness, our understanding of what is our reality. I strongly recommend this text, Anno Self Being You, and it highlights that what we understand to be reality is based on perceptions. I think most of us in the room are familiar with like the wonderful exercises like the gorilla in the room at the basketball scene, and people seeing, are they seeing what we understand them to be? And Anno Self highlights our brains essentially are future prediction machines. So in order to survive, we need to manage perceptions about our future behaviors of ourselves and others, like how we, who we are, how we help or hurt others, and why others should help us and not hurt us. So it's the most fundamental human function after, breathing, eating, and using our senses. And so purpose is central in effectively managing this dimension. Because if you've got clarity around your purpose, who you are, how you help others, or may hurt others if required in order to realize your purpose, or why others should help you and not hurt you, it's the critical tool, asset, vehicle in order for you to manage that dimension of managing the perceptions of your future behaviors. And so, Porrick, do you want to touch on our purpose spectrum, man? We've got Porrick in the room. Let me pick up the button here. So
he's on mute.
Oh, sorry. Hello, Porrick. He's not down the pub already, is he? All right, but let me pick up.
I didn't realize I'd gone on mute.
Sorry, Porrick, mate.
I got the mute kicks in when you come back in from the breakout room. Sorry about that. No, I suppose the only point I'd make about this is, and this is obviously a number of different, manifestations or ways of describing purpose, and that people have very different motivations and different types of reference points for culture or for purpose. And we wouldn't see this as being necessarily a continuum of virtue where, you know, if you're on the left here, you're in the bad, if you're on the right, you're good, or vice versa. But it's recognizing that purpose manifests itself in different ways, and it has different sense of it has a different role, and a different reference point for different types of people in different types of circumstances. And indeed, there may be circumstances in when you find yourself with a clear sense of purpose that aligns with one of these, or in other times you find yourself with another type or another definition of purpose that's relevant to your particular need. So purpose is a very fluid thing, and it is something that therefore we feel the sense is that we need to go back into ourselves and establish, first of all, what is our own sense of purpose, what is our anchor, and what is the point for us as individuals involved in leading conversations or participating in conversations from which we then help others to derive their purpose, because it is not a steady state, and neither is it a continuum from one extreme to the other.
An interesting point to add there, Park, is that you can be dogmatically anti-purpose and also dogmatically purpose-driven. And so here is maybe individuals who have a very strong sense of purpose, of what they're doing, where they're going about, but then fail to maybe be open to understanding to others, to fully engage, which not only undermines their collaborative qualities, but also actually fuels greater division in society. So, as I say, there's an interesting range of different types of people and where they're coming from on their individual purpose journeys. So, we mentioned about a DIY purpose program, and some in the room might be thinking, well, I'm running a purpose business here, and you guys are going away here giving stuff away. And my response would be that we're doing your freemium. We're doing the freemium for the purpose market. That in order to grow the market, you've got to grow it, engage people, and then take people on a further journey. So our DIY Purpose program consists of the Purpose Pyramid, where we've identified 7 different stages to quickly identify your character and purpose. And we've got supporting tools for each stage of the journey. And if you look from left to right, interestingly, we started off in the original version, and this is a model that's been tested in Canada, Australia, Ireland, and the UK in about 20 or so different pilot groups. In their first model, we had beliefs at the starting point, because logically, that's the foundation stone for your worldview. Like, what do you believe in? And then everything else builds upon them. But what we found was that there's such a massively big question that it was overwhelming. Like, what do I believe in? It's a bit like if I say to people, think of things that are white. You get a bit overwhelmed. But if I say, think of things that are white in your fridge, it's a much easier focused task. So what we found from experience is that the first stage is values. By identifying your values, that unpacks the rest of the journey. So our values tool enables people to identify their values as a starting point. And then from that, we then introduce people to their persona, where we use a tool that identifies 12 different archetypes of your character. So for example, if you're in an amateur theatre group and they say, go on a stage and be a character, your first question is, well, what's the character? And yet in life, do we do that? Do we ask that question? So a brilliant tool that identifies like the character of who you are, identifies your type, your approach, and so on. Then we invite people then to identify their beliefs, the underpinning foundation stones to their values and persona. And then there's stories and narratives. We invite people to identify their greatest hits, particularly non-work, because that's stuff you've done, you've not been paid for. And also from that then, these values, these stories and narratives that demonstrate your values and belief in action. We then identified, this was initially labeled as collaborative skills, like how collaborative are you? But we've evolved this to social instincts, and there's many questions you can ask here, but the 2 ones we focus on are you a leader or a follower? We had one delegate on one of our pilot projects great feedback on the course, but she then reported dejectedly that her boss had sent her on the program because he wanted to be more of a leader. And she was a first-class follower, and we're passionate that followership is vitally important, as important, if not more, than leadership. And if your instincts are a follower, don't beat yourself up about it. And we got tools to how to be a good follower. And then the other key dimension, we've identified using the work of Nicholas Kostakis in sociology. Sociologists are now do experiments to establish universal laws of human behavior. And one of these is that 2 out of 3 people will help a stranger, which is great news. 2 out of 3 people help a stranger, but it also means that 1 out of 3 don't. Now, that's not to say those 1 out of 3 are bad, but just an instinct. And obviously this can be contextual led. Think of the Good Samaritan exercise and so on. But nonetheless, there are people with a profound we-led or me-led instinct. Excuse me, where a we-led their response might be, what's the group response to this, as opposed to an individual. And then purposes, we identify your different purposes, which will come on to a moment in terms of reframing it, and then ultimately a prime purposeness. So you've got those 7 stages where we take people. We've run it in programs of 3 60-minute workshops. We did one with 2 60-minute workshops. And from our experience, we found if you provide coaching support, you can deliver a very intense program in a very short period of time. And then it then leads on the issue that we distinguished that purposeful is different to purpose. So everyone has a biological purpose to survive and grow and multiply. And purposeful is how you help others. And in our work, we've identified that in our purpose stage, that we say that purpose needs to be reframed into 3 key elements. So you have a biological, or what we call a business purpose, to survive and grow. So some basic questions there, like, what do you want to earn, for example? And you have a creative purpose, which is like the why of what you do. And then you have a social purpose, which we interpret as who do you need to interact with to realize your business and creative purposes. So, excuse me, we believe that purpose at the moment is a bit fuzzy as a paradigm, and this gives clarity in terms of understanding it, making it go forward there. And then, having completed the program, we invite people to produce a Purpose Manifesto, a simple PowerPoint slide with maybe a visual metaphor and your stories and capturing your values and beliefs and your narrative of where you've come from and where you're going to. And we found from experience that the more structure you can give, you might get a 100% response rate in terms of delegates producing a manifesto. With less structure, that number can go down, from our experience, to maybe about 1 in 3, 1 in 4. You shouldn't have favorites, but I do like the one on the top left. We'll all be dead soon. Let's do something amazing. Excuse me. So see the DIY purpose program that we're making that available free of charge to kickstart change. So Parrot, do you want to be sharing with the guys our plans over the next year?
Well, so what we're continuing to do is we have we're trying to get this conversation going around the world. So we have a series of events that take place, and we say events, they're online basically. So we have what we call the world tours, where on a given day we will do a workshop online at maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, Europe, London or Dublin time, which would coincide with the afternoon or evening down under. Then we would do one at lunchtime, middle of the day here for the audience that might be based in Ireland and the UK. And then we would do one in the evening or early evening or late evening rather, I should say, or early at night time, that would suit people who are in the Midwest or West Coast of the USA. So we have this idea of the world tour. So we'd have the same workshop on at 3 different times that would allow us to capture conversations from all sides of the globe. And we've had a number of sessions which have involved people from Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, Canada, the US, as well as Northern and Europe and UK and Ireland. Our aim in the course of the year is to have over 230 conversations. And ultimately, in a year's time, we would like to have an event which we're called, which would certainly at the moment anyway, we're badging as Conversation Fest, but it may be somewhat different. We don't know. We're going to evolve it with the conversations, but it's going to be based in a town in the northwest of Ireland, from which I come originally, a place called Sligo. It's a town of about 20,000 people with a nice intimate feel to it, and would allow us to engage with the history and heritage of that area in terms of music, in terms of literature, in terms of very nice natural amenities, etc. So it's a pleasant place with which to reflect on the world and how it's going. But the idea is that this conversation, this window we're creating, and this conversation that we're trying to generate would actually cause people to reflect on their purpose and the way that they articulate and moderate purpose for others in the course of the year ahead.
And I think a legacy from that event in Sligo will be then we produce a blueprint. And a blueprint's a good metaphor because it provides a degree of structure, but without being over definitive. And so we think through our co-creation, we've made a very good effort to produce something. It's taken us 4 years to get it this simple. And then over the next year, we want to make it even simpler. And then from these conversations, the point there about Darwin, apparently he kept up 231 correspondence in producing his work. So I thought, well, that's good enough for him. That'd be good enough for us in terms of contributing to our dialogue going forward. So it's very much a point there about conversations. Very least we can ask of people is give us feedback. In our social capital tools, we say that you should always make 3 asks. One is to give you extra resource. And secondly, it changes the narrative. Rather than us with our magic wand providing a solution, this invites people to work together. You establish a narrative of togetherness. So the very first is please, give us some feedback. Secondly, maybe what word of mouth. And thirdly, what ways can we help each other to grow stronger together? Which leads us now to our next breakout, really a fine one. What else do we need to do to kickstart faster change? So we're producing 35 tools, over 6 families tools, 4 green papers, and a space with our world events and conversations. But I'm sure there's other things, and I'm sure there's ideas racing through your mind about what else can we do. And so, Chris, how long do we need to give the guys?
Yeah, so I think with the time, let's give 8 minutes for this one, and then we'll just have a couple of minutes to wrap up at the end. So I'm opening the rooms.
So what else do we need to do to kickstart faster change to purpose? Okay, welcome back everyone to the main room. So we're really just going to conclude the 3 key takeaways. We need a more purposeful society, but how our contribution is a kickstarting faster, bottom-up led change with a free DIY purpose program and the rest of our toolkit, the rest of our green thinking, and giving people the choice. You can be a bystander or a change maker. I hope you're the latter. And as I say, Chris and the team here will be sharing our contact details. Please dig it up. Let's keep the conversation going.
Well, thank you very much, both Andy and Patrick. Great to a lot of insights. I'm still trying to process because there is a lot of really good content. I'm still sticking with the formula purpose, a combination of business purpose, creative purpose, social purpose, and many other insights as well, starting from your values. So really. Rich session, very valuable. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining and for being here with us today. I just put the link to our upcoming sessions in the chat, so please, it would be great to see you in the upcoming sessions. And the next one is with David Hyatt, and he's the founder of a jeans company. He's trying to get to bring back the jobs for 400 people. Cardigan in the UK, and the next one is with Sunny Bonnell, and she's gonna talk about innovation and non-conformist people. So thank you very much. We will share everything with you after the session, the recording, and also the slides and the content, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one.
And happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, and thank you, Andy. Thank you, Porrig.
Alberto, do you want to take a screenshot before we
Oh,
here?
yeah, I forgot. Before you go, just it's gonna be easy. 1, 2, 3. You need to smile. That's done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.